all of us want to be a true CEO, that means we're kissing babies and shaking hands. That's largely what we should be doing. So if you fast forward, you're either going to have a job inside of the business or you're going to be the investor in the business. And if you're the investor in the business, which I like to think that that's what I want to be, I want to be the individual that owns it, controls it, but is not operating it every single day. I think people don't think when they're hiring that they've got to go to somebody better than them at sales, at marketing, at client relationships, at finances. That's really the biggest thing when you look at the most successful people. They have much better people doing the jobs that they were previously doing, but they retained ownership, and that's what got them to success. So if you think of building a house, you got to pour the foundation, right? You got to make sure that the foundation is there solid, that the frame is there solid before you even think about putting on the roof. You don't have a good person laying the foundation or the floor or the walls, that house is going to be a piece of crap.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Season 4 of Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through CFO services, consulting, and accounting. Now, this is Season 4, where we focus on companies who've either bought, sold, they're scaling really fast, or they're just overall excelling. And I'll be out here trying to meet people because there's a lot of people out here that's doing great things, that are just they're just awesome. So I had to say, okay, who are some people that I think are interesting that have done it at a high level or have some type of unique perspective to bring to you guys? So recently I went, it was this 2 week travel thing, would never do it again. But on that tail end of the trip, joined a new community. Shout out Josh Nelson, Seven Figure Agency. And so there was this guy that I had talked to a couple of times. It was always brief. Somebody would be like, hey, Brad told me to reach out to you. And I'm like, really? 'Cause I'm like, me and Brad have not had a deep convo. So I'm just like, I need to find this guy when I'm here. So I find him. He's like 7'12". I mean, got it's like a genius but tall. Like it's wild. So, ladies and gentlemen, Brad Ferris is here. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're gonna start now. Mind you, Brad does a lot of stuff, so he has a lot of very valuable insights. But before we get there, tell the people name of company, and who you serve.
Yep. So Brad Ferris, I'm the chief operating officer of two agencies. One is Clinic Grower, which is a medical marketing agency in the aesthetic industry. And then I have another one called Agency Growth Team, and we place, train, and develop account managers for digital marketing agencies.
Okay, so first and foremost, what made you want to run two businesses at the same time?
I actually have experience running up to seven at any one time, and that was before I had kids and early in my marriage. So I don't recommend people do seven unless they've got an amazing team. And I've been fortunate in two different parts of my life to have amazing teams, to be able to operate all of it. But once you scale one business and you replace yourself and you've got really good systems and people in place, adding another business is just following your heart or your desire or your ambitions. And if you're a good student of the game, which a lot of us are, you're learning on the fly. You've got good mentors, and I've had a good life coach for a fairly significant part of my life. And I just think it's fun. Like, don't chase shiny objects, but I'm a very much a Buffett allocating capital type of student. So all of my businesses, even though they might seem quite different and far apart, they're all very, very closely intertwined, and they're sharing resources and efficiencies on a regular basis.
Okay, so let's go back in time. So tell us about the marketing agency, how you got started, how'd you end up where you are? Like, give us a little bit of story because, of course, we know that a lot of people are like, oh man, I'm gonna just start this agency and in like 90 days, I'm gonna be making a million, which is not always the case.
That's right. No, it took us So back in 2019, I had seen high level for the very first time. My business partner kind of was one of the early, Bref McHugh was one of the early adopters of Go High Level. Was seeing it inside of a clinical research organization that I was running at the time and thought to myself, oh man, we don't have to like zap everything together. Like there's a software that like brings us like these young kids, Cameron, don't know the pain that we had before high level, right? Like you have like 17 softwares all
Right.
connected and
And they got to
breaking and like
talk to
yeah,
each
and
other.
they
And
got a talking one, right? So as soon as I saw that, I thought to myself, hey, here's a huge opportunity to fix marketing across the board for so many different businesses. So late 2019, just prior to COVID, we formed up. We were about 17K at that point in time, doing just medical. So we had a couple of vein practices, a couple of dental, a couple of research clients. COVID hit, and we were like, "Oh man, like we're not going back to regular jobs in an office at this point, or for me, going back to nursing, which is where my first degree was." And we scaled. So about a year and a half later, we hit our $1 million. We were hustling, doing webinars, doing outreach, giving value. The formula has really been the same every single time. Even if when you're meeting somebody for the very first time, give them value, build that authority, build that trust. You never know when they're going to have a referral or they're going to come back and want to work with you, or there's maybe something of value that can be exchanged. And that rinse and repeated over the last 6 years has allowed us to do a lot of amazing things.
okay, so now let's go here. So you not only have grown your own business, which makes perfect sense, but in 7FA, you're what's considered a coach, aka this guy has done it as a high level. He can be a great mentor slash resource to help you to skip some steps. So let's talk about that for a minute. So to start off, what are the top 3 to 5 mistakes that you see companies when they're coming in the door? So, I'm making my first 10K or 20. What are like 3 to 5 of the mistakes you see them making, but they just swear they're going to get to $1 million? But you're like, if you don't fix these 3 to 5 things, it's going to be terrible.
Um, First thing I always share with everybody is I think customization kills your ability to scale. I think it's one of the exciting things that we get to do as dynamic owners. Like we're very, we have a big toolbox. We can do a lot of cool things. That doesn't mean you should. So I think simplicity scales. I think one of the first things that people forget is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? So when you've got that first client, maybe they need a website and SEO, try to replicate that template, that systemize and scale it so that you can at a default offer that to a lot more people, and there's less resistance, right? There's less friction inside of your business. I think we get excited by customizing and by being really close with the clients, but as you scale you realize it's really tough to replace yourself if you need somebody to customize and be the big marketing brain inside of your agency. So I think that's one. The second one is really simple. It's tasks before titles. So people come to me as a specialty coach in 7FA, which shout out to Josh Nelson, great program, and they want assistance on helping to hire a person. They almost always, Cameron, come to me with a title already in mind. And I go, but what's that person going to be doing? Like, what's their daily checklist, their weekly checklist? What's their monthly checklist going to look like? Because we can give that person any title. Any title that we want to give them, we can give, but that doesn't necessarily shape what that person is doing each day. And I think sometimes when we focus on titles, we're not focused on what are they doing in the weeds each and every day. And that's really what you're needing to be able to scale so that you can get yourself into other pieces of the business. So that's the first two. You want a third one?
I want the third or the fourth one too.
What's the third? I think really realistically getting a really good mindset coach. I think I'm very fortunate. I grew up in a very kind of middle to upper income family. Was both my parents are together, supported well, went to good schools. But most people that I meet, whether we're calling it imposter syndrome or they've got some type of trauma or challenges or difficulty in mindset, I think finding a professional. So in Seven Figure, we've got Dr. William Attaway as one of the coaches. I'm a psychologist. I have a life coach that I've had for the last 11 years. He's had a huge impact. I think that we underestimate people giving us the better tools and replacing those in the toolbox. So we open our toolbox and we're like, well, we got a lot of tools, we got a lot of gifts. but you've also got to be upgrading if you want to be scaling your business. And whether it's leading people, whether it's leading yourself, whether it's being a person of faith, it's being a good husband or father, I think ultimately, $500 a month for most of us is a minimum investment that I think that you should be doing, just working through the challenges that we all work through, the stress, the uncertainty, right? The little bit of doubt that's there. I probably do appear all the time like I've got it all put together, but I've also invested a lot in making sure that I've got it all put together.
Okay, so we got customization kills your ability to scale, task over titles, and get a mindset coach. Now, we got to talk a little bit about money. What are some of those problems you see with these newer agencies? Because again, I've never made 20K before. Yay, I should just be able to do fill in the blank or pay myself all of it. What are some of those common pitfalls you see with some of the people you're coaching where you're like, may want to watch that?
Yeah, no, no. Some individuals. It depends on what type of financial education they got growing up. They may have been around somebody that was profit first oriented or a saver. They may have been around somebody that's all about renting the Lambo and showing it big and getting the money and spending it right away, right? Um, when it comes to finances, I always go back to the very first practice I ever took over back in 2010. The doctor said to me, Cameron, very openly, when I asked about the P&L, he was like, I don't know what that stands for. I said, oh, okay. You've been in business for 17 years, right? Didn't know what the P&L stand for. I said, well, like your asset, your income, statement, like, and he just looked at me and he was like, Brad, seriously. He's like, every month there's a little bit more money left in the bank account than there was the month before. I've largely been successful focusing on that. And that kind of taught me a really important lesson, Cameron, because I did have a really good, like I took accounting for fun in my electives in university. Um, a lot of people, when that money comes in, they're not thinking what goes out. They're not planning what has to go here. They're not thinking about that stuff. No one's taught them those skills. No one's been there as a role. And shout out to you and other individuals that offer that service. It's an invaluable thing. Whether you're hitting your first 10K or you're going from 50 to 100, you have to have someone there to help you forecast, budget, understand your cash flow. Most businesses, again, good advice, they're about two bad decisions away from going out of business. And a lot of the time that's around finances. Um, so having someone there that's probably more financially capable is really, really important. For many of us, that might be the business partner, that might be the operational manager type of person. But people always say to me, and I'm sure they say to you, like, oh, I can't afford that yet. I make the case that I don't think you can avoid affording it. Like, I think it's just part of building a business. You have to have a business plan, you have to pay your taxes. You've got to have a good understanding of what your revenue and expenses are. And when you have that extra money, then you can deploy it and reinvest it back into the business where it's most appropriate.
Okay, so that makes sense there. Okay, so now let's flip it the other way. So we talked about what not to do. If you want to scale, which everybody who comes into 7FA, they want to, maybe want to do it different or come at a different perspective. But like, what are three successful things that you've seen pretty much everybody who's gotten to that seven-figure mark do? Like, this is a common characteristic or method that they do that gets them there that you should be trying to implement.
Yep. So right from day one, I think you have to have the mindset. I'm um, very adamant about this. You have to have the mindset of you're going to be replacing yourself in almost every important aspect of the business, right? You're not going to be doing your bookkeeping. You're not going to be doing all of the sales. You're not going to eventually be talking to all of the clients. If all of us want to be a true CEO, that means we're kissing babies and shaking hands. That's largely what we should be doing. So if you fast forward, you're either going to have a job inside of the business or you're going to be the investor in the business. And if you're the investor in the business, which I like to think that that's what I want to be the individual that owns it, controls it, but is not operating it every single day. Um, I think people don't think when they're hiring that they've got to go to somebody better than them at sales, at marketing, at client relationships, at finances. That's really the biggest thing when you look at the most successful people. They have much better people doing the jobs that they were previously doing, but they retained ownership, and that's what got them to success. So if you think of building a house, you got to pour the foundation. right? You got to make sure that the foundation is there solid, that the frame is there solid before you even think about putting on the roof. You don't have a good person laying the foundation or the floor or the walls, that house is going to be a piece of crap. And I think a lot of the time our businesses aren't as good as we know that they can be. And I would say number one, that definitely focus on making sure that you got the right mindset, which coming back to the kind of stuff we had before. Um, what else should people be doing? I think having the free time. I'm a very big time blocking person. So in my calendar, my week, it's very highly managed by my calendar. I'm very specific about the time that I spend on certain things. And I think a lot of people, they probably don't have as much structure, Cameron, in their day in terms of blocking things out. And ultimately, you've got to have something outside of the business that keeps you focused and inspired. So for me right now, it's raising three boys and spending time with my wife and family. Some people it's working out at the gym. Some people it's another positive habit. Don't allow negative habits like drinking, alcohol, recreational drugs to kind of get in there and take away that drive that you've got.
Okay, so now we know what not to do. We know kind of common characteristics. Um, let's talk about the overachievers because I know you know them too, because you low key may be included in that category. What separates the overachiever, the people who are at the 2, 3, 4, 5 Ks, which we won't name drop because we know some of them, versus those who are, for whatever reason, I'm in the program. I promise you I'm listening, even though I just stay at this same 40 to 50K and have no idea why. What separates them? Because they got the same resources, got the same coaches, the same calls available to them, but there's always a clear difference that I know, at least on my side, I can tell from the two different groups. And what, because I mean, to be fair, making 40 to 50K a month is not terrible. Like, just to be fair. But the people who make the 200, 300K in a month, completely different plan of attack. What have you seen that kind of separates the two?
They're going to have a mix of two different features that both are important, but it depends on how you balance between the two. So one is going to be speed of implementation, speed of attack, speed of deployment, and the other is going to be accuracy. They are at odds with each other. It's kind of just the business reality that I share with everyone, whether they want to hear it or not. Okay. If you're fast, you're not going to be as accurate. If you're accurate, you're not going to be as fast. But you have to have both. A successful business has to be able to implement something quickly or be adaptable or be nimble. But you've got to, just like any type of professional sports player, you have to be accurate. Like you have to be accurate. So some of us are fortunate that we have speed or we're built for speed. Sometimes that means that we're probably going to miss a little bit. Like we might achieve something at only 80%. The other option is to slow it down just a little bit and achieve at 95% or 98%. And I still think that that's going to be more successful. You can't just slow it down to a snail crawl and go for 100. But I think the most successful agencies have a balance of those two things. And I think as you're making decisions inside your agency, as you're guiding your team, those are the two things that you want to make sure that you should be aware of both of them. How is speed going to impact this decision? How is accuracy going to impact this decision? Obviously, you need to go for whatever's going to make you most successful. But if you just go for speed, I think you're going to be disappointed. If you just go for your accuracy, you're probably not going to be the first to market or the first to deploy something. So it's about looking at both.
Mm. I'm trying to digest this for myself because I'm like, which category do I fall in? I think even myself, I'm more in the accuracy versus the speed. Um, just because, of course, when you're dealing with people's finances, it's you have to be accurate because that's like 12,900 versus 129,000 is. I mean, yeah, it's just oh man, I hit one less zero, but like that's a big difference in somebody's tax return. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how, from a speed perspective, how do you even up the speed? Because in you guys' case, that's often ad campaigns, right? And the turnaround and hurrying up and getting an ROI, or the speed in which we complete a website. Like, So how can you do the speed at the level you're talking about without compromising that accuracy well?
No, here, whatever point we are in the podcast, this is where the secret comes. I'm a very big believer in do what you do best.
Hmm.
Only do what you do best, and do not think about doing anything else until you have mastered that. If you do what you do best and you've fully mastered it, like when we say mastery, you can do it at speed and you can do it at accuracy. That's mastery. That is what we see in sports from the Jordans and the LeBrons and the Babe Ruths. I mean, they are from just repetition and work. They have flaws. Like, you can't sit there and say that they're the perfect athlete, okay? But they have focused so much on doing one thing and doing that one thing at an excellent level, and then they're obsessed about adding in another skill set at that exact same level. And I think that instead of, we just don't have a conversation around that, right? Everyone says, oh, deploy everything all at the same time, scale at all costs. And I think if hopefully that's resonating with some people in the audience. If you really focus on doing what you do best and you master it, you will be fast and you will be accurate. And that opens the door. Like when people, again, I know we talked about like, well, how many businesses, Brad, did you own at one point? Um, I can do that because I've worked on focusing through simplicity and scaling through simplicity. We don't, I mean, as a marketing agency, we don't do social media marketing for our clients. We don't do all the social media posting. Um, Probably at some point we will. It's like the last thing in the roadmap that we would add. But at this moment, it would actually take away from our focus, our ability to achieve, our ability to be nimble and accurate. And those are tough decisions. They are because there's shiny stuff every single day, Cameron, for all of us, right? There's a new tool, especially with AI right now. Everything's about like, oh, look at this new fancy thing. Um, that fear of missing out, I think, is again something to go back into mindset. And if you've got someone as a coach sharing these lessons with you on a consistent basis, well, then it's likely more it's going to sink in and have an impact for you.
Okay. 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 I hope y'all got that because that's really important. But if you didn't, that's why you're watching. All right, let's go to this way. What is something that you believed in business early on that now that you're more seasoned, you're like, man, I've had to completely unlearn this?
Yeah, it was hiring. I thought to myself early on in my career that my instincts would always be right. Right? When you meet people, when you're evaluating them, I think that was probably the most humbling experience for me. I think I've hired and fired nothing short of 1,400 people in my career, which doesn't seem like a lot until you go back through all the faces and you're like, that's a lot of people, right? Um, so I learned often, and again, it came from my coach giving me a very humble perspective. He said, you're either overestimating their ability or you're failing to support them. And I was like, no, that can't be right. Right? Like that's wrong. And I was like, no, every person I hired that didn't work out, I thought they were better than they were. Or I wasn't training them, supporting them, giving them the mindset support that they needed to be able to achieve. And, I was like, okay, you get, and as I've gotten more older, we'll say older, as I've gotten more experience, as I've gotten older, I think that has set with me longer. I take more time in my hiring now. I'm more intentional. I want to know these individuals from their moral compass and from their belief system a lot more. I've put things in place that allows them to be successful. So we have online universities for almost every role inside of our companies. Some of them are 300 hours of recorded content on how to do the job, on how to do the role, and the situations that we've come into. By no means are we perfect, but I think that was number one was thinking, oh, I can just tell from an interview, Cameron, that this person's going to be great, and that was such a naive young man thing to think. And you get your butt handed to you, hire after hire, and you start to think to yourself, okay, like there is more to this than just how we interview or what they look like on a resume or having a beer with them and just feeling like this is the best that's out there. I've really learned that I need about 400 applications to be able to see who the best is. I think when you get 20,
Did you say 400?
Yeah, so I use this example if everyone is open to again challenging their mindset. Let's say that you post a position for a CPA, okay, at your firm, and you have 30 people apply. The best person out of 30 looks pretty good, right? Like I think we would both agree. But what if we had 300? What if that what if that top person out of 30 is now right smack in the middle? They're only 150. What does the top one at 299 look like?
I mean,
It
they
looks
move
quite different.
less.
It looks quite different, right? And that's one of the things that I've looked at. Not, and I don't want 300 people to apply just so I can be a jerk and say no to 299 people. Okay. But, but again, like if you look at professional sports teams, if you look at those professional scouts, how many players do you think they're having to look at before they go to their boss and say, hey, here's the number one pick that I think we should go after? They have looked at a very, very large volume spread of talent. Um, we hire too quickly, and that's one of the things that I that works well in my business is we tell people that's how we find the best. Like sometimes we're lucky, and that top person out of 30 is going to be the person who's at 299. um, but most often, you're kind of disappointed when you see the rest of the applicants come in. You're like, that person was just average, man. Like they were the median, right smack in the middle. And that might still be great for you as a business, but I want to scale. I want to get out of my business. I require the best that's available in the market that I can afford. That's going to allow me to do the things that I want to do in my professional career.
Okay. Okay. See,
Yeah.
there's always a
Listen,
method to
everyone's
his
thinking.
madness, y'all. See,
Yeah.
you gotta ask. Cause you see how he's gonna just float out that 300, like, and just keep going. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? But I remember, to your point, I've had that experience as well, where you get to the interview and you're more focused on the vibe and like, oh yeah, this person will do great. But then, 3, 4, 5 months in, you're like, you're such a good person, but it's not
Yeah.
working.
Not here.
You can't keep up. So that's super important. And then I think another thing you hinted at, you didn't really deep dive into it, is it can't just be based on what you like. You got to run them through some other additional tests. I know we do like the this test. I've
Yep.
made like a custom accounting test, etc. So that way
Yep.
you can truly, because to your point, like we're in 2025. You can kind of finesse your resume to sound really, really good, but you can't finesse the test or a live. Let's go through this example and see. So that's dope. Okay, here we go. Next question.
Okay.
What is a money lesson that you wish somebody would have told you about, but you had to learn the hard way?
Um, I wouldn't say I've learned the hard way because, I mean, to probably sound a little egotistical, I learned it all in third year financial accounting, right? Managerial accounting. It was all there from day one. I would say from working with a lot of other agencies and coaching and mentoring people, I think they wait far too long to get their books in good shape, Cameron, right? So they're running personal expenses through the business. They don't have a great, they have a bookkeeper, but they don't have anyone kind of helping them kind of like allocate the money and the capital, looking at their cash flow, looking at the ratios, their expenses. Um, from a private equity standpoint, because I come from that world, I got to spend about 3 years in it. It's one of the first things that when you're in a buying decision, that buyer's going to probably try to pick you apart with, right? And it comes down to risk. Where's the risk, right? Is there financial risk? Is there accounting risk? Is there a tax liability risk? Is there a forecast risk? When someone's buying your business, when you're trying to sell your business, that's what you want to minimize to the absolute nth degree. And we were probably 40,000 a month when we went to finding a fractional CFO, and I would still say to somebody like anywhere around that point, it's not too early. Obviously, we've upgraded our services quite substantially now that the agencies are almost $2.5 million in terms of like total revenue. Um, but I get a lot of questions around how should I pay myself? How should I pay my people? What should my ratios look like? I read Profit First, and I just kind of say again, it's back to that first lesson that I talked about. You want to replace a lot of the things that you're doing right now as a business owner with better people. You don't necessarily have to hire a direct CFO, $150,000 a month into your business. There are great services like yours that are out there. And that's one of the very first things that you should be trying to offload to somebody else from an affordability standpoint, so that you can just have your meeting. I mean, I don't know how often you're meeting with clients, probably once or twice a month. Have your meeting, have everything there at your fingertips. You can make really good decisions, and you can go focus on driving sales, driving marketing, building your team. Um, Same thing with operations, right? I think one of the first things that people should be doing is handing off, payroll and billing and things like that to a fairly junior person, whether it's a VA or an assistant or an operations manager. None of us should be sitting down unless we have to and do 3.5 hours of payroll. And I know everyone's like, oh, it doesn't take 3.5 hours to do pay. It does if you're doing it properly. And if you counted yourself doing payroll, you would realize that it's going to take you about 2.5 to 3 hours to do payroll. And that's valuable time that you should be doing on something else.
Good points. Good points. Okay, switching gears. If I gave you a magic wand today and you could fix one thing in the agency, what are you waving it at? Because I think a lot of people figure like, oh man, once I make $1 million, like it's smooth selling. I'm gonna have everything perfect. It ain't gonna be no issues. And all the owners I know are like, that's not true. You just gotta. There's certain fires you let burn. There's others you put more focus on.
Yep. I would I would try to increase my omnipresence much faster than we did. So I would have published our book sooner. I would have launched our podcast earlier. I would have done more monthly webinars. I would, the amount of referrals that we get now from content that we did 2, 3 years ago, I would go back in time and kick my own ass and be like, I should have doubled whatever I was doing at that time. And that's why I'm kind of sharing with everybody, get the books off to somebody else. Get the operations or the hiring or the payroll or the billing or the marketing. Like really, really focus on building your brand. I recently purchased my own name, bradferris.com. I haven't done anything with it yet, but again, I would go back in time and I would probably have spent a lot more time creating more reputation. I think that's just an easiest way for a prospect to be able to trust you, build rapport, um, believe that you've got value, right? It puts you at the top of the market. I think everyone's trying to do that with social media, and I don't think I want to fault anyone for the effort that they're putting in. But I think if you were to look back, like I'm looking back on my 6, 7 years in agency, I would think to myself, if I put another 30% into doing that, I would be even further ahead than I am today. Which is why I'm here on the podcast with you. Do more podcasts.
Do more podcasts.
Do more podcasts.
Get out there. I like that. Just because to your point, our brands personally and the business can drive not only just attention, but it helps bring insight to who you are. Like a lot of people
Yep.
be like, man, I followed you for a while. It's cool to meet you in person. But it's like they already oh man, I know you got a young family. We know you homeschool. We know you work out. So like having that personalized brand is also what can set you apart because now I feel like I know who you are as a person. And at the end of the day, people like to work with people. I mean, we got AI. AI is cool. We appreciate it. Shout out to it.
Yep.
We don't want it to ban us or nothing like that. But people still do business with people at the end of the day. Let's talk AI for a hot second because, of
Sure.
course, we use that in our business, as I'm sure you do. What are some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks you're seeing? Because, again, I'm sure you got some clients that are trying to go all in, but they may be losing some of that personal touch because you automate too much. And then you got
Yep.
the other side where people are like, nah, we're going to buck the trend and we're going to stay super personal and don't utilize it. So, like, what are some of your thoughts on how it can change us for the better and kind of be really, really careful on this part?
Yeah, this is where the haters are going to come out, Cameron, because I enjoy being a contrarian, kind of going against the grain. It's kind of one of the things that I've always taken pride in. I think AI is a wonderful tool. I think everyone should be looking at how to replace maybe the bottom 10, 20% of kind of mundane, expensive tasks that we're doing. What I think I want to caution people around, and this just comes back to my medical background as a registered nurse. AI is only good at what it knows off of the internet, off of what it's been trained. So there are still things every single day that I talk to ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity to, and it comes back and it tells me it has no idea what I'm talking about. And that's just a humbling perspective of it knows a lot. It knows a lot from YouTube, right? Most of them are trained off of all the content on YouTube. But if we think back to like whatever was in the Encyclopedia Britannica, remember when we were kids and you had that in the library and stuff like that, there's still stuff that's in there that AI doesn't know yet. Obviously, people are working towards making sure that the knowledge bases get larger, and I think it's again it's a quick speed to fix tool on a lot of stuff. But there's a lot of times that I'm not impressed with what it gives me, and I think to myself, as a well-educated person, that's close, but it's not 100% correct. And yeah, when you're training junior people, I still think you want them to go through the process and you want them to put in the effort. And I don't think you want them finding shortcuts just for the sake of finding shortcuts. Um, I mean, everything I'm giving here as value, I don't know that AI would be able to generate just by saying, "Hey, can you listen to some of Brad's podcasts and summarize, his lessons in life and stuff like that." Again, I embrace it. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to have a Jarvis. I'll have very good, cool conversations with my AI on my Apple Watch and stuff like that. I'm excited for that day. Um, but I also don't know that we want it taking over everything. I think some of us, like I still enjoy going out into my orchard and doing the things that I want to be doing. My hope is that AI allows more people to do things that they love. Um, I'm not probably wanting to have it take over everything that I do in my life. I think that's a little overkill when people are kind of saying it's going to do everything. It's not going to do everything.
I feel that just from the standpoint of, like you said, like, could we probably automate a little bit more? But like, even on the business side, because we're dealing with people's numbers, like, I could, but I don't know. And maybe it's the way I'm wired, but I want my people to know, like, it's me. I got you. I got your back. Um, and I am actively involved in helping you to grow your business by stabilizing this. So I think, to your point, like, it has its greatness, but just
Yep.
don't lose that personal touch that makes you different. And then, even like you said, we've been trying since we just started homeschool. We're in week 4, craziness.
Okay.
Like, I specifically ordered the actual books so that my kids get used to writing, versus when they were doing online school, like through the state, they
Yep.
were on that screen all the time. They could talk great, but then it's like, hey,
Mhm.
let's write this. They're acting like writing is just so hard. I'm like, this is something you gotta do for the rest of your life. But I had to
Yep.
remember, they're so used to the screen and typing. So okay, let me flip
Mhm.
that. So like, they literally got the actual workbook, etc. So
Yep.
like, making sure they're so well versed so that in any environment they can thrive. So good point there. Okay, I know you're super busy, so we're gonna wrap this up. But I got one last question that I want you to give us a good answer on. So the
Okay.
question is, if you could go back in time, you got a time machine, and you get 30 seconds to go back to either 18-year-old Brad or 22-year-old fresh out of university Brad. You are
Okay.
going, and you know everything that's happened to, like, this second. You're going to tell him what?
I'm gonna tell him to go find his wife faster. Find her earlier, whether it's 6 months earlier, 2 years earlier. Travel the world with her. I love my kids, but I miss the time that I got to spend with just the two of us. And I would tell him that, like, I am a very big family person, marriage person, like, be with that person forever. No doubt in your heart at all. I'm very fortunate that way. I've got a great partner in my life. And yeah, I would tell him to go and find her. Now, I'm 5 years older, so that'd be a little bit creepy telling 18-year-old Brad to go find, the 13-year-old wife. But you know, again, I would love to have. I would never regret having an extra 6 months with her before we had kids. And again, I'm very excited when my kids leave our life that I'm going to be able to do incredible things and travel with her too. But yeah, that's probably a little unique. I fell in love the moment I met her. I literally forgot my name. I had to like do like a reset button And maybe a little unorthodox, but yeah, that's what I would tell 22-year-old Brad. Go find her a little faster.
I feel that because having 3 kids,
Yep.
them date nights start getting real rare. So I feel that. Okay, cool. Let's wrap this up. So tell the people if they're like, man, this guy's cool. I want to work with him. I need his services.
Yep.
I just want to connect with them or get him on my show. How can they reach you? Name of the company, the whole nine. This is your time.
Yep. Yeah, so company is clinicgrower.com and agencygrowthteam.com. You can reach out to me directly on Instagram, Brad Ferris, Facebook, Brad Ferris, LinkedIn, Brad Ferris. I was kind of one of those early guys that got all the good handles right away. I don't share phone numbers or emails or anything like that. But I mean, listen, if you ever see me on stage, you see me at an event, you see me in person, please come up and say hello. I'm a slightly introverted person. I'll kind of stay in my little bubble of comfort and stuff like that. And I appreciated you coming up at the event and saying hi because sometimes I'll just kind of like go off in the corner and have a quiet moment with somebody else, and it's always great to meet new people and do new things.
I mean, but funny story, he was like towards the corner. It's just
Yep.
everybody knew him, so they just kept coming up to him. So
Yep.
I was like, dang, I want to get my turn to say hey. So I
Yep.
just, and there was some guy just asking you questions, which I thought was so interesting, but you were so patient. You were so
Yep.
patient. So, with that being said, y'all, these are the types of people that we want to bring to continue to give you guys value. I think it's so interesting how we try to put all of this glitz and glamour into growing and scaling, but these are the people who've done it, who are coaching other people, who've seen it happen multiple times and can help you not only skip some steps, but also to not throw your family away while you're doing it. So I hope you guys got a ton from this episode.
Yep.
According to my
Can I do one last thing?
what you got?
Okay. One last thing for all the young guys and young owners watching is don't idolize the people sitting on their fancy car. They don't know how to drive that car either, Cameron. And if that's why you don't see me, because I'd be a blur going by you, driving that car as it's supposed to be driven. Um, just focus on what matters to you, and don't worry about what anyone else is thinking or saying. I think we spend too much time worrying what other people think.
See, wisdom. I mean, because to his point, we know what fast money looks like in that chase, but this is something that you guys should want to do for the next 20, 30 years. How do we do it at a sustainable pace where we're not burnt out, where we're not hating to wake up to get to work, but we actually enjoy what we're doing and who we're serving? So I really hope that y'all listen to what he said. Y'all took some good notes. You mark this. You're going to share it with your buddies and friends because he's not telling you this as I read this in the book. This is not only him doing it, but him currently coaching other people just like you to get to the same stage. So, Brad, again, thank you for coming on the podcast. With that being said, everybody, until the next episode, please take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon.